It's a new day in Louisville, a day where children play on a brand new playground in Central Park, where new businesses are opening from Barrett Avenue to Shelby Street, from Oak Street to Dixie. Today, more families will move into new, affordable homes, more than at any time in the past decade. And with these investments, they can look forward with confidence to the future. It's a new day in Louisville. And under the leadership of Councilman Baker, our district is filled with hope, progress, and promise. Let's keep the momentum going.
Oh, you're fine.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you to the March 26th County Board of Education work session. We are delighted by your presence tonight as executive of the Department of Public Education and that indeed public education and public good. As we gather this night, we gather as Women's History Month comes to a close, and it is fitting to read a quote by Michelle Obama, who says, "You should never view your challenges as a disadvantage. Instead, it's important for you to understand that your experience facing and overcoming adversity is actually one of your biggest advantages." That is from Michelle Obama, former First Lady of the United States of America. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda? Mr. Marshall, seconded by Mr. Craig, all in favor? Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 5th meeting? Ms. Craig, seconded by Ms. Strange, all in favor? Ayes have it. We have an extensive list of individuals who have signed up to address the board tonight. There is, the board has adopted a 45-minute time limit on speakers. The way that we will proceed tonight, understanding that we have a lot to accomplish, a lot that we're getting through, is that we will allow all of our student speakers to speak first, and our student speakers will not contribute to the 45-minute time limit that has been previously set by the board. The first adult speaker will signal when the 45-minute period for public comment will begin. Okay? We want to hear all voices. The board has received your emails. We understand the critical issue that is before us tonight, and the legal counsel has permitted me to say that, or to comment as to my intentions of making a motion to include Central into the plan that our superintendent is bringing before the board tonight. So I want you to know that up front, that will be a part of our deliberations, so that if you don't get an opportunity to speak because of the time we're running out, know that we will be considering your comments. Thank you. Keep going.
In accordance with Board Policy 01.421, the Board expects that persons who have signed up to address the Board will limit their remarks to the subjects that they listed at the time they signed up. that their presentation will not include any defamatory or abusive remarks about the subject, and that they will present their remarks in a manner that is consistent with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Also, in accordance with board policy, the board reserves the right to limit, extend, or terminate discussion on any subject. Discussion of personnel matters is not permitted, as state law requires that personnel matters are within the sole authority of the superintendent. The speaker may not initiate charges or complaints against an individual district employee by name or position in order to ensure confidentiality and fairness for the employee. Speakers before the entire board are not allowed to use props, displays, or any other objects during their remarks. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the board and may not share these minutes with any other speaker. At the end of 2.5 minutes, a bell will sound once. You will then have 30 seconds to finish your statement. At the end of 3 minutes, the bell will sound twice, indicating that your time is up. The superintendent will look into the speaker's issues and, if necessary, represent the board in following up or recommend action to the board. The full board policy concerning public participation in open meetings is available for viewing on our website and at our sign-in sheet.
Dana Ramirez. Dana Ramirez. Salia Gillen.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Salia Beeler. I'm president of class of 2025, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of Central, a magnet career school that has been giving me, my classmates, and those before me the tools we need for a bright future. Central has an amazing magnet program, including the dental magnet that I'm a part of. Mind you, no other school besides Central has this magnet, which comes with wonderful opportunities for students. As I just mentioned, Central is a magnet career school that requires students to be accepted in order to attend. This means that our student body is made up of students who are passionate about their education and are willing to work hard to achieve their goals. However, if our district transportation is taken away, our student body will decrease, which I feel like isn't fair to those who work so hard to get accepted into Central and were promised an experience in magnets that may no longer exist if we don't have the students to support them. This decision is about more than district transportation. Have you considered the other impacts that this will have on schools? Central's magnet programs have given us the opportunity to explore our passions and to gain valuable skills and knowledge that will help us succeed in the future. If my school loses our district transportation and the student body decreases, there's a chance that we lose a lot of our magnets and the opportunities that come with it. Because who will be there to fulfill these empty rooms? These opportunities will be lost and students will be left without the resources they need to succeed. Although the transportation voting is 100% you guys' decision, my main focus is the unity inside of Central. That saddens me most about the decision you guys are trying to make. Taking away our district transportation will decrease our student body, and if our student body decreases, so does our teachers and admin. These are people who look after us like their own, who's been a shoulder to cry on when things get hard, and the ones who believe in us when we don't believe in ourselves. Taking away Central district transportation will be a devastating blow to my school and the students who attend it. I urge you to consider the impact that taking away our district transportation will have on Central and the students who attend it. Central is a special place, and it has been paved with a bright future for students for years. Please do not take away the opportunities that Central provides us with. Please do not take away our district transportation. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Amy Jo.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy Jo and I'm a junior at the historic Central High School. On my very first day at Central, my history teacher told me that there are two types of Central students. There are the ones who are Central students and the ones who want to be Central students. Central is a school that deserves students who want to be there. I guarantee you, as soon as you walk into our school building, you can automatically feel the energy and love inside of it. Central is our second home, and we found our family in our admin, our teachers, and our peers. Getting rid of transportation for magnet schools is not the right choice. Every single person in Central plays a role in why Central is Central. Our lunch ladies who smile and encourage us as we pass through the line, our teachers who genuinely want us to do our best, our administrators who do their very best to keep us safe and appreciated, our peers who will come save us even if we were stranded, and our alumni who come back and relive the love they felt at Central. No other school in Jefferson County has pride like Central got. No other school in Jefferson County will make people feel valued and appreciated the way Central does. No other school in Jefferson County will give me a community to be me like Central continues to do every day. I am not a tiger, a panther, nor a crimson. I am a proud 1130 Yellow Jacket. At Central, we are taught to be leaders of positive social change. All 7 JCPS board members need to be leaders of positive social change. Vote for option 3. Find a different way. Find a way that will not result in a negative change for the historic Central High School. Take more time and listen to those this will affect the most. Us. If there is no bus, there is no us. I had the privilege of going to DC in February, an opportunity offered to me by my magnet school. One of the activities I got to do was visit the U.S. Capitol. The Capitol is filled with statues donated by the different states. My favorite statue was one given by Florida. Embedded on the stone was a quote by Dr. Mary Lillard Bethune. It states, "Invest in the human soul. Who knows, it might be a diamond in the rough." Standing here today, I urge all JCPS board members to invest in us. If we are the future, invest in us. Every student at Central is a diamond, whether we are still in the rough or shining bright. Invest in us. Thank you.
Louisville Sarpy.
Hello, my name is Louisa Starkey, and I'm the freshman class president and a member at Central High School and a member of the Black Student Union. At our BSU meeting this past Friday, we discussed the Jefferson County recommendation that the district transportation recommendation that the district released on Thursday evening. And we used the racial equity analysis protocol to examine it. And the district website states, the racial equity analysis protocol, REAP, is an instrument to be used when school leadership is making decisions impacting students. The expectation is that the protocol is used for every decision. In turn, should the screening of an ideal or incentive unintentionally marginalize or negatively influence a group of students, that the leadership should adjust the idea or plan. Run the idea through REAP again and check the inclusive. The REAP is not just used for new ideas and incentives. Schools are expected to use screening established practice using the protocol as well. Similarly, if an established practice proves to marginalize any student group, leadership should amend or end the practice. I intended on sharing our results with you this evening, but in light of everything that has come out in the past 24 hours, I am now asking the district to release all the REAPs that are done on the transportation plan, including the REAP done by the Jefferson County Racial Equity Committee. We have provided copies of our REAP to the public, and JCPS needs to do the same. I am also asking that the school board delay its vote on transportation plan for next year until these reports are made public. The transportation plan marginalizes multiple student groups, so leadership should amend the transportation proposal to include transportation for all magnet school students. Thank you for your time. Samir
Murphy-Sloss. Samir Murphy-Sloss. Amara Menezes. Amara Menezes. Okay, Stephanie Huckabee. Stephanie Huckabee. Lakeisha Jones.
Good evening, Dr. Polio and board members. My name is Lakeisha Jones, and I am the proud principal of McFerrin Preparatory Academy. I am coming to you this evening to share the impact that transportation has had on my students and families. Being an AIS, Choice Zone, and community school, we have been continuing to build effective systems to increase student achievement so that every instructional minute counts for our students. Currently, McFerrin starts at 9:40, and due to the change in transportation, we have been impacted in ways that we did not anticipate, nor did we experience last year. Each day, we have 6 out of 13 buses that arrive late. This means we have about 222 students who miss anywhere from 10 to 25 minutes each and every day in instructional minutes. We have seen an increase in bus referrals because, like many students in JCPS, building positive relationships goes a long way. Bus referrals have doubled due to overcrowding on buses, different drivers, and sharing buses between 2 to 3 schools. Our mornings are spent working through peer relationships and social and emotional concerns due to transportation, and it increases the loss of academic instructional time for our students. Our dismissal time is 4:20, but on an average, we have about 6 buses, which carries over 282 students who are still waiting to go home between the hours of 4:45 and 5:20. This means many of our students are not getting home until 6 p.m. or later. Other obstacles we face are family engagement opportunities, access for all students who qualify for extended school services, also known as ESS, and even students who are not able to participate in sports or school clubs due to parents' work schedule in conjunction with transportation. The late start times and later dismissal makes it difficult for our school to plan, to have a consistent schedule for many of our after-school events and ESS. Do we plan for before school, after school? Do I ask my staff to come in early or stay late? They also have families and other obligations outside of the school day. We have seen a decrease in attendance for our both staff and families at our family engagement events, and ESS by at least 50%, and early sign-outs have doubled due to the inconsistency in times students get home. Each and every day at McFerrin Preparatory Academy, I remind my students and staff, you belong here, where learning is required. We're building a culture of high expectations for our students and staff, but with the unpredictability of transportation, it makes it difficult to include all students and to ensure we truly are providing the necessary learning opportunities for our students to have the adequate access to high quality instruction each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Jones. Josh Bourgeois.
Good evening. I'm coming to you to share the experiences and the impact on the students and staff at Thomas Jefferson Middle School as a result of the bus driver shortage and the current busing system. As the principal of an accelerated improvement school with more rigorous intervention, I've accepted the role to lead the improvement efforts for our school and to accelerate the learning outcomes for our students. As an AIS school, as in any school, every minute matters. Currently, we are the second leading school in loss of instructional minutes. The delay in students coming each morning has resulted in 20 to 25% of our students coming to first period late each day. This is 200 to 250 students who miss a portion or most of first period each day, resulting in significant loss of instructional minutes. We have attempted to mitigate this by adjusting schedules, but at the end of the day, we're trying to do more with less. Additionally, our administrators and staff have to devote significant portions of their morning to signing students in, monitoring hallways, and monitoring the cafeteria. Most importantly, our classrooms become revolving doors in the morning as we work to get students from drop-off to the cafeteria, to the locker, and to their class in 13 minutes or less. Additionally, the consistent delays of bus routes have made it difficult for our students and families to develop consistency in their daily lives in how and when they come to school. We've noticed a decrease in attendance as many times families and students do not come to school when they miss the bus due to the bus being delayed. Again, we're asked to accelerate our students with less time. Finally, this has had a tremendous impact on our staff, as we have had a gym and a cafeteria full of students at the end of each day as we wait for buses. Our teachers, our staff, and our administrators have stayed anywhere from 1 to 2.5 hours every day this year to consistently monitor students. All of this energy, time, and resources spent on transportation and not spent on what's most important, accelerating our students' learning. Our faculty meetings, department meetings, and all other meetings are impacted as we work to make sure we get the right people at the table, but also make sure our kids are safe. I know this is not an easy decision because our school board needs to make it, but I ask that you make the choice that impacts all kids, that makes sure that we have all kids in school on time. Thank you.
Reverend William Stockton. Reverend Stockton. Dr. Rita Greer.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you regarding the JCPS student transportation recommendation and ask you to rethink your option one choice, which is in essence a means of rectifying the transportation fiasco in which the district began this past fall, and it is not in the best interest of our community. While lack of bus drivers is a mitigating factor in getting students to and from schools in a timely manner, have you revisited the pandemonium created by multiple start times and the impact that it will have on this plan? Yes, bus driver shortage is a national concern, but in JCPS, it is not the lone star. To what extent have you really scrutinized the data by route, by school, by day? Can you identify transporting how many students, which students from where to where, what time, which way, to compare this plan to the old plan? If you do not have precise data, you cannot make definitive, competent decisions on how to improve the process. We will be having these same conversations again. No, you cannot keep doing what you are doing. However, implementing this option will take the district back to neighborhood schools and may perpetuate segregated schools along racial and economic lines, a place that we have been working to avoid for nearly 50 years. This transportation option limits students' choices and exposure to career options and opportunities that may be their fit. We have continuously sold our community on the value of giving students choices. Now we're saying, if your child chooses a line of study that fits him or her, but is not in the reside schools, that is fine. But you figure a way to get them to school. It's not the district's responsibility. In addition, you recognize that Black and other students of color are the majority of JCPS bus riders who are the late arrivals. How do you equate arriving late with not being able to attend because the students have no safe, consistent way of getting to their school program of choice? What you do already know is that lack of transportation will have a heart-wrenching effect or impact on several schools. What is your plan to ensure that schools like Central maintain adequate student enrollments to keep their doors open rather than migrate toward closure? What happens when schools are stretched beyond their enrollment capacity? Another plan. JCPS students and families have inequities, and to thrust every student into the same pot under the guise of being fair by treating everyone the same is the most inequitable and insensitive thing that you can do as district leaders. Also, know that if you implement the options, you will hand the state legislature a roadmap that slices and dices the Jefferson County Public Schools, and that division may be supported by an extremely disgruntled community. Thank you.
Mr. Lamont Collins.
Good evening. Today is something I saw 40 years ago when I was part of busing in Louisville, Kentucky. I was part of busing at Fern Creek, one of the most disruptive actions going on in Jefferson County. I look at Fern Creek today as the most diverse school in Jefferson County. It tells me some things we do come right. But historically, black children have always taken the burden of anything happening to education. Central High School is a school that was world-renowned back in the 50s, and is well-renowned today. Kids gravitate to the school. They feel a home in the school. And the kids know if they feel a home, they have people that care about them at the school. Central High School is imperative for what Jefferson County says it's about. It's about growing each child. Each child should have a dignity and respect to who they are. Central High School does that. It has always continued to do that. And there's an old saying that says, put the food where the goat can get it. It's so important for us to put it where people can get it, so young kids can flourish and do the things they need to do. Jefferson County, I'm a product of Jefferson County. But I never thought I'd be here 40 years later talking about buses that we used to ride when I was in school, about the same issues of kids getting home late at night. When I was 15 and 16, I seen teammates do the same thing. Opportunities of great athletes never getting to play because the school wouldn't get them home to play. Coaches that actively kept kids out of programs because they didn't live in neighborhoods. I see too much of that today. Too much that we know in history of what happens, and too much that we walk away and say we got to do it this way. And it should never be a way that black students and brown students continue to carry the burden of education. Thank you.
Dr. Dan Withers.
Thank you, Dr. Polio, and the board members for allowing me to speak today. My concern is the possible decision to discontinue transportation for the students in the magnet programs, particularly those students at Central and Manual High School. Here are my questions. Have you considered the impact that the discontinuation of transportation would have on Title I students? Have you considered the impact that it would have on students who may no longer be able to attend or enroll in their school of choice? When I was the principal at Central, approximately 82% of the student body was students in poverty. Today, I understand there's 77% Title I students. The point is, this decision will not allow many students to study in their choice magnet or attend their school of choice because the family cannot afford the cost of transportation, while more affluent students can. This is a smack of Jim Crow. In my tenure as assistant principal and then principal at Central High School, I learned the importance of the magnet programs. Frequently, I would receive questions, even from fellow school administrators. What is the key to Central success? Every year, we maintain approximately 94% attendance rate and a 92% completion rate. We continually to score over 50%. We continually scored in the upper 50% of Jefferson County in the state achievement test. The key to our success was that we built a community by developing positive relationships through the magnet programs. A magnet program is a hook to inspire students to do well in academic classes. For example, I would always ask ninth graders who aspire to be in the government program, what is the most important academic class you would take in high school if you wanted to be a lawyer? They would say history or social studies. I would say English, because you have to learn to speak well and write well. Empirically, I discovered students began to do better in their language arts classes they realized it was an important step to achieve their goal of being a lawyer. Not only did they do better in the English classes, but they appeared to be a positive transfer effect in all their other academic classes. Since the start of the Law and Government program at Central, we have over 50 alumni who have become practicing lawyers because of the inspiration of Joe Gutman and the magnet teaching. I'm running out of time, so I'll just finish here. It is critically important not to disrupt the magnet programs at Central or Manion due to the possible discontinuation of transportation of students for these magnet schools. I understand that under the expansion of the school choice plan and the change of school start time, we have outgrown the old transportation plan. However, to go down this path of immediate transportation removal would be an injustice to these students and their families. I encourage the board to do it cautiously and invite community partners along with school leadership to craft a plan that's fair to all. Thank you.
Edward Miller. Edward Miller. Would you all ask people who know this program Stephanie Huckabee?
Hey, thanks for allowing us to speak. I'm no fan of busing, but yet I find myself here speaking in favor of busing. In the past, I have been severely disabled, and for months, I depended on that school bus to bring my daughter to school and bring her home. And I'm a single mother, and there are many single mothers in disadvantaged families, and we need busing. But then I want to speak in particular for magnet schools. Magnet schools provide diversity. They bring all kinds of people from all walks of life with different proclivities and talents and things that their parents sense and want for them that's different than what's offered in their local school. And it's a short-sighted thing to just cut busing, which will affect us in the long term because of the enrichment and the diversity and just the expansion of putting people together that normally wouldn't be together. I'm the product of magnet school. I went 1st through 12th grade to magnet school. I was bused 1st through 10th grade. Sometimes I was on the bus for almost 3 hours. But it allowed me to live in Europe and work professionally and then play for an orchestra. I had a television career in Los Angeles, and now I'm back home to further enrich my community. And if I had not had the people that I met and encountered in the magnet program, if I had not been able to interact with people from other walks of life, it's a really important opportunity that we're going to take away. So when we cut the busing, we're eventually going to lose numbers at the magnet school, we're going to lose funding, and it's just going to remove their entire purpose. I ask because last year was a rough year for busing, and I just ask, let us not give up busing for all these students and people that are plugged into their communities and doing their thing. Let us not remove busing just based on last year. Last year was a mistake. There were a lot of things that went wrong, and so I just ask for us to give it another go, to be more thoughtful, maybe include some of our company CEOs and people that are used to, solving problems on a large scale, complex problems, meet with them. Maybe it would be like a lottery system for, people that get bused into the magnets and other programs. Maybe it's just people that have of need, people like me that are single mothers and find themselves at times disabled or I don't want my child to lose the
I'm humbled to be here today to speak with you all. My name is Edward Miller. I am a fetal surgeon and the director of obstetrics and gynecology in the Division of Maternal Fetal Medicine at Louisville Health. My words here are my own. More importantly, I'm a first-generation college student, first-generation physician, and if I was in this seat 10 years ago when I was applying to college or was applying for high school, I would have chosen Central. The Commonwealth of Kentucky is hurting, and this is much, much bigger than busing. It is the Commonwealth being right near the bottom of the United States in conditions like diabetes, hypertension, life expectancy. The kids who go to Central grow to an area where the life expectancy of its inhabitants is 13 years less than those that live in J-Town. And as a clinician scientist, I spend my life and my career treating patients and ending healthcare disparities and increasing health equity. And I would respectfully disagree with many on the board that say that this plan is equitable, because I've never seen a model in my career in which equity is achieved that decreases access, diminishes opportunity, and removes choice. Now more than ever, choice is on the ballot. I've been in Louisville for 5 years, and briefly, how did I find Central? I'm not from here. I came to Central High School at the height of the COVID pandemic when I was trying to vaccinate as many Louisvillians as possible. I approached Central High School leadership and they said, sure, you can have a vaccine event here, but you have to have the students involved. Never knew any students, so we created programming, created TikToks. We found ways to educate the community. We vaccinated 450 kids who said they would never get the COVID vaccine on their own. And then at the end of the COVID vaccine event, I asked if I could visit their classroom. There was one girl who said she wanted to be a doctor, but she was in the pre-medical magnet program. She took me to her classroom. This is where you all need to start. That classroom is outdated. That classroom is old. If you see it, you can be it. I don't know how that little girl could see it growing up in that classroom. So U of L Health dedicated themselves to being able to see it. We created the pre-medical pipeline program at Central High School that is one of the most innovative and integrated pipeline programs in the country. That pipeline program, for the first time, can offer these kids scholarships to the University of Louisville, the opportunity to become doctors for free. That's much more valuable than 10 minutes of education a day, if you ask me. That is life-changing. That is career-changing. That will change the health of people in this community for years. Finally, I think we have to remember what these kids have gone through from the COVID pandemic, homeschooling, the mental health crisis, but every day these kids wake up and they choose Central. They choose it because the community and us choose them back. So the world is watching, the community is watching. And in terms of equity, what I found is that equitable decisions are made when the table is big. This is a really small table to make equitable decisions. And I hope you pause, increase the table, get more people at the table, and listen to the community.
Antonio Palmer. Dr. F. Bruce Williams.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I think you've heard some very persuasive arguments so far about not executing this plan. There's many things I could say that has already been said. I don't want to be redundant, but I do want to do this. I do want to remind you of a couple of things. One, that you are the stewards of a legacy. In the 70s when busing started, it started so that people could have access, so that they could have choice that were denied them, so that they could promote diversity. In 2018, you made a commitment, a promise again, to be true to that legacy. And there are people who sacrificed, especially people of color, especially Black people, who bore the burden of having to travel so that they could get the access that was rightfully theirs. And so I think that it's important that you remember that you made a promise and that you owe a community. And one of the ways to keep that promise is not to undermine choice by taking away transportation, but to go back to the drawing board and to keep your promise and to be true to the legacy of those who sacrificed so that this opportunity could take place. What is interesting to me is that not only have you heard persuasive arguments against this plan, but the audit says that the plan is not only not equitable, but the plan is not necessary. Yes. Thank you.
Dr. Michelle Patrick.
I am here to appeal to your better angels about your decision to eliminate transportation for traditional and magnet schools. If implemented, this decision will have a profound effect on the children attending these schools. And it is vital that you take responsibility for their present and future economic opportunities. Over the past 2 years, as a concerned citizen, I have sat in the audience and listened to presentations aimed at improving academic achievement for our children. However, the February's presentation on transportation made me question the accuracy of the information presented to obtain the final decision. It was one of many, I was one of many citizens involved in the discussion using the REAP protocol last November 2023, and then again in February 2024, stating that none of the transportation options were equitable. Despite our efforts to provide suggestions through the REAP protocol, it appears that the district ignored our concerns and proceeded with the least desirable option. As a concerned citizen of this community, we implore you to ask the district to revisit Dr. Polio's original suggested start times, which are based on medical research. And this report that you all have, stating that middle and high school students' start times should be 2 hours later for better academic performance. Actually seek help from transportation experts rather than relying on those with less experience. We cannot accept that it is acceptable for elementary children to return home at 6:45 p.m. each evening. Ensure that the decisions made tonight is fair and equitable to all children and families. Know that this report suggests that eliminating magnet transportation was not recommended. If you cannot provide transportation for all children, let's invest the money in improving academic achievement in math and reading for all schools. I want to emphasize that we are not the enemy. We are concerned citizens who want the best for all children. We rely on the board to fulfill your responsibilities and ensure that the district provides the necessary resources. Academic achievement for each child. Please remember that you have a direct responsibility for the district superintendent. Let's all work together to find a solution that will best benefit the children in this community. Thank you.
Greg Dawson.
Hello. Transportation for magnet and traditional schools or any JCPS school should absolutely not be eliminated because all our public school students, regardless of the type of public school they attend, must be offered the same basic educational opportunities, including safe buildings, healthy lunches, and reliable transportation. If transportation is eliminated from magnet traditional schools, all schools will become immediately separate and unequal. Because far too many students who have now provided transportation would choose and flourish in the magnet schools and traditional schools. But then without that possibility, they will no longer have access to programs offered solely because they will not have transportation to those schools. This eliminates educational opportunities and decreases educational equities for all students, because these students and families will be forced to make other choices based on transportation. This solution may help reduce some of the district's transportation issues in the short term, but over time, it will cause larger problems throughout the system, including higher absentee rates, lower student performance, and less effective magnet and traditional programs because of transportation. And it will have higher enrollment and larger classes and increased disciplinary problems with lower performance for the students who will have overflow to other schools that offer transportation. The bottom line is that eliminating transportation on any level is a lose-lose for all students and for our community, because disrupting transportation in this manner would change the entire dynamic of how schools will be operated, with drastic increases in disgruntled students, their parents, and school personnel. The elimination of transportation will, in time, negatively affect every student in the system and ultimately be the catalyst for the demise of the district as we know it. Lastly, we all know that this proposal will disproportionately hurt low-income, immigrant, and students of color the most in achieving educational equity within our district. Please help this proposal and work with our community to find better solutions. Thank you.
Chris Higdon. Chris Higdon. Daniel Cobble. Daniel Cobble. Michelle Penix.
Well, I feel like I'm in church, and in the black church we have a saying, and that goes, I stand and giving honor to God who's the head of my life. I say that this Holy Week because in the Word of God it tells us that which you do for the least of mine, the least of these you did for me. And so we want to stand as members of the Coalition of Black Retired Administrators to remind you about the least of these and the promises that you made us 2 years ago. As we sat in on phone conversation, meeting after meeting, to determine and to make sure that all of our students in Jefferson County would be assured transportation. We were told then that that was an assurance that they would honor and keep. And so we stand here today because that is now being taken away. And so we stand to say enough is enough. And we want you to know that we stand united with over 200 years of experience right in front of you. I take a little bit of that. But with a lot of years of experience to say we can do better. We believe that taking away transportation is sinful, unfair, and unjust. And because of that, we have no trust. We can rhyme too. The facts speak for themselves. It's inevitable since the school choice plan in 2022 and our conversations with the board and the superintendent that it was important that we create and fund quality schools in all parts of the city. And we again are at a place where we're just kicking the can and refusing to make tough choices and decisions, again, for the least of these. So how did we get here and how do we move forward since we can't go back? Well, we don't think you move forward, not yet. It's too much, it's too soon. We don't think you move forward, not yet, because we don't want to see another chief operating officer tell us about transportation unless they are standing beside a logistical expert from UPS, FedEx, or TAR. We don't want to move forward without addressing the real issue of student support and discipline. We don't want to move forward, not yet, until we explore all solutions in time and with community investment. All schools need to be quality schools. We need to re-examine the policies that have been put forth, and we also want to remind you that no matter what you decide to do, we implore you to hold harmless Central High School for at least 3 years while you work this issue out. They should not carry the burden for this entire district again. Again, hold harmless Central High School. Don't remove any funding, any staff, anybody at Central High School for at least 3 years as you work the issue out. Again, happy Resurrection Week.
Mr. Chairman and to the board, Dr. Polio, the NAACP remains unequivocally opposed to this transportation plan being considered. The report issued yesterday, or finally issued by JCPS, substantiates our opposition. The 1975 desegregation plan placed the burden of ending segregation on Black and brown families. If the proposed plan is adopted, you will once again place the burden on Black, brown, and this time poor families, and you will resegregate our schools. The Prismatic report clearly warns against ending magnet school transportation and states, I quote, doing so would be inequitable, end of quote. JCPS recommendation states that the dependent plan is the only one to pass free. That is simply not true. Inadequate or inaccurate information has been given to this board and the community. When the NAACP endorsed the student assignment plan a couple of years ago, the superintendent and the board promised choice. Now you are reneging on that promise and only offering 16,000 students go back to their resigned school. That brings up a trust issue. And we certainly have the trust issue before this community. The option plan, along with the Prismatic report, will arm anti-JCPS legislators and Congress with ammunition to assist in the division and destruction of the Jefferson County public school system. The NAACP requests that you lay on the table this plan and discard it. And let us all work together to find a more responsible and equitable solution.
Rob Matthews. Rob Matthews. Okay, while he's coming in, please your book.
My name is Nisha Booker, and I'm speaking on behalf of Central Being the first school for African Americans in the city, Central is a historic landmark. If you go with option 1, over 1,000 students will no longer be able to attend Central. These students work so hard to get into their magnet program and shouldn't have the opportunity snatched away from them because they cannot afford transportation. These students are in programs they will not be afforded at other schools. Programs such as pre-med, nursing, and dentistry. If the transportation is taken away, student population will decrease by over half. This will result in funding being taken away from the school, which results in teachers and administrators being let go, which results in some of these programs being taken away. Not only will it result in magnet programs being taken away, it could also cause various sports programs to be taken away as well. Our students don't deserve this. They don't deserve to lose what they have worked so hard for just because they don't have a ride. And TARC is not a viable option in my opinion. For one, some of these students would have to walk over a mile to even get to the TARC side. They would have to ride the TARC anywhere from 20 minutes each way to an hour and 40 minutes each way. They would have to walk to the TARC stop on Main Street because there's some neighborhoods there are no sidewalks. And then who will supervise these students on the bus? Who will keep an eye on the young girl who had to ride the bus alone because her single mom had to work and couldn't pay her? My ask is that you hold on your decision. This decision is so detrimental to our Black, brown, and poor students, and I believe it deserves more thought and more discussion. Last year, the board stated that they would hold community meetings to get feedback from those this plan will affect. Today, I have not heard of any. Have the meetings, have the discussions, talk to your constituents, the people who voted for you to be in that board seat that you're sitting in right now. The people who trusted that you would do what's right and what's fair. They may have ideas that you have yet to think of. They may be able to help you come up with a better option, but you won't even give them a chance. Talk to them and give them a chance to use their voice and be heard by the board members they voted for. They trusted you, so take some time to show that you trust them as well.
Hello. The picture that I've just given you represents a journey. It's an ongoing journey for my daughter, who graduated from JCPS in 2020. It's one that sadly she probably would not have been able to take if she were entering JCPS today. My daughter is a talented artist. When I recognized that talent early, we were overjoyed that JCPS offered her opportunities to grow that talent in our art magnets program at No Emmanuel. The picture you see is one created from her first trip to New York, done in ink over many painstaking hours for JCPS assignment. That picture earned her a second trip to New York as a national winner in the Scholastic Art Competition. She was given an award in a ceremony at Carnegie Hall that featured Tina Fey, and her art was on display in a New York gallery before being sent to hang at the Department of Education in D.C. The magnet program that developed my daughter's talent has led her to many great things. She's had her art display at the city capitol, where she was honored by the governor and lieutenant governor. During COVID, her art that she created was used on both face masks and a campus billboard display at UK. She was featured in a Kmart fashion show with a dress she designed made out of hundreds of gum-balls. But perhaps most importantly, her arts education led to thousands of dollars in scholarships to pay for both tuition and living expenses her entire 4 years at the University of Kentucky, and employment opportunities in the arts. I'm here to tell you to vote against the transportation plan because it feels selfish not to. My daughter benefited because she has access to both of these programs and transportation to get there. Had we not had transportation, it's doubtful we could have kept her in magnet. I imagine the situation is even worse for those who don't have the privileges that my wife and I have. Future JCPS students deserve these same opportunities. At this point, we're looking at a single option to fix transportation, and it's not much of one at all. Having reviewed the audit findings of Prismatic on the transportation fiasco last year, I don't see how this board can have any confidence that the information you're receiving is accurate, well-vetted, and reflects the best efforts of this administration. You've been misled, had details misrepresented, and watched as perhaps the most important decision in 50 years in JCPS was fumbled from start to finish in a culture that's toxic, secretive, and not open to listening to the stakeholders or people in the know, many of whom are still outside. It's up to you to decide to put the final nail in the coffin or not. breaks my heart to see where we are right now, and to know there are lots of good teachers, administrators, staff, parents, and most importantly, students who will suffer from the wounds we've self-inflicted, and a legislature who seeks to fix things by tossing a grenade at JCPS. I urge you to vote no tonight, hold the leadership accountable for the findings of the audit, and look for ways to give more student access to the journey that my daughter had the privilege of going. Thank you.
If I could have a moment, I'm sorry. Is it you, sir? Oh, go right ahead. I apologize. Everyone.
I am Russell Glass, and I am co-chair of the Local Metro Human Relations Commission Education. When I was chair of the Human Relations Advocacy Board, one of the things that I did was urge our board to advocate in a positive way for children in this society. And the number one way I would do that, part of Jefferson County Public Schools. I think we've done that since then on a quarterly basis. After this year, for some reason or another, we missed our first quarter meeting. And then our second quarter meeting, which was to be held this week, was canceled. So we could not discuss the issues that we wanted to discuss. We could not discuss why school bus drivers were not consulted when we wrote this transportation plan that flopped in August. I have a cousin who's a school bus driver. She and her husband every year for 15 years have gone out and traveled her route to see what it looks like. She discovered a road on the AI design transportation plan that was too narrow for two cars to pass each other without somebody pulling over. It was impossible for the car on the right side to pull over because there was a cliff. Problem with AI, they don't know what our roads look like in reality. Do your due diligence, always, when it comes to our children. I'm not being a friendly partner today. I'm being an advocate for our students, which was the main goal. We were troubled that a company was chosen that had no experience with record transportation in some other major markets. And the board did not know about this, but were asked to approve their contract and did. We have to do better than that. I'm not going to go over the part about Central High School since other people have already spoken about that.
Any items?
She valued education. She lost. You all were fortunate. You won. I'm going to challenge her tonight, what I have to say, because I know what she would say if she was here tonight. She has a grandson, a teacher at Central High School, a great grandson who is a student at Jackson. To the board, each of you are elected to the school board to help set policy, provide guidance to the superintendent, and to hold the superintendent accountable when appropriate. They do their faith. You're not supposed to be a vote stamp. You're about to vote for a recommendation to upend the lives of 16,000 black, brown, and poor students and their families, when there was nothing in that audit report released yesterday that remotely suggests that is a solution. In fact, it argues against doing it in the name of equity. What the report did strongly suggest that you, the board, put too much trust in the superintendent who failed to provide you with sufficient information to make the best decision of last year's ill-advised transportation plan. The report also says the plan was compromised by a workplace culture of fear and retribution, stifled ideas, and resulted in a lack of communication across departments, poor planning and execution, and an inability or failure to correctly analyze the data. The administration also tried to skirt the Open Meeting Act. You only do that for a reason, to hide something. But you all accepted that plan with little or no due diligence. You didn't prosecute the plan. You didn't ask tough questions. You didn't ask basic questions. It's mind-boggling how the voices of district transportation people were minimized, basically left out of the discussion. Tonight, I ask you to pause any action and double down on your efforts to find a more responsible and equitable solution. What happened last fall was an embarrassment. Devastating. Don't repeat the same mistake tonight at the expense of children's education. You would also be playing right into the hands of the forces in Frankfurt who want to break up JCPS. If you vote to end transportation for these students, your action will represent a complete abdication of your responsibility, a complete betrayal of public trust. That will be your legacy. The NAACP will make sure the public knows. Thank you.
All right, our last adult speaker is, name has already been called, with the local David Caldwell, who will come.
Thank you. Here's a copy of my statement and other issues that I was The news reports this morning on JCPS confirm what I keep saying. A parent recently asked me how to save school busing. I told her when JCPS reconnects the students to their parents and communities, only then will employees and teachers feel safe to return to JCPS. In the 90s, when in the Navy, I lived with a girlfriend with a bright 15-year-old son who got D's and F's in class. When we began to require he do his homework, we attended his school functions and open houses, etc. His grades raised to almost straight A's. I learned then that kids are only motivated by parental and community involvement. So how is it that our private and Catholic students are educated in safe environments, but not JCPS? For here, the board's game plan is clear. During the chaos of taking away busing, the Kentucky legislature was swooping to break up JCPS. Then West End students and other localities will be targeted for more disparities to slow their education. However, a proper lawsuit will remind the courts that the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled multiple times that parents, the taxpayers funding all of this, have the right to participate in the education of their kids. JCPS and the Kentucky legislature are unlawfully isolating students from the parents and communities that precipitate unsafe schools. And thus, the second legal issue would demand the courts to undo and replace costly reactive policies with the proactive policies that connect kids. Here are a few. Reinstate parents-teachers conferences. Number two, the parental school staff partnership where parents and grandparents are paid and volunteer as aides to the teachers and staff and as hall monitors. 3, programs that promote fatherhood. 4, teach handwriting, cursive writing. 5, a friendship program for students go to communications with parents or other family members and their friends. And 6, no more suspensions. Discipline in the classrooms by requiring the parent or a designated neighbor to pick up an acting out child from school, etc. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I'm calling for the resignation of Dr. Polio. Thank you.
All right, there were 3 students who were held up and the especially to speak. Who will proceedings for tonight? Samir Murphy Sloss.
Hello, my name is Samir Murphy Sloss, and I'm against the JCPS transportation plan. A lot of changes have already been made to address the transportation issue, and I understand this is being discussed because of the lack of bus drivers. But I don't believe that this will fix the problem, and it will only create more problems. The change in school times is already seen with the incredible amount of stress on the bus drivers, making their hours really long and having to deal with really young kids by themselves for such an amount of time. And those kids are still getting home extremely late and getting discriminated against. Magna School is again a specialized education that isn't readily available at regular schools. If transportation was cut from these schools, a lot of kids would miss out on opportunities that aren't locally accessible. And this is especially not fair to families who cannot afford to have personal or private transportation. I went to the Louisville school, which is a Magna school, and I was lucky enough to live close enough to walk to and from school every day. But my mom worked to make this so she couldn't drive to the school, so couldn't do that. And when I started living with my grandmother, she moved much further out, so we had to get to park 2:30 later and move on together now. And this was a reality for a lot of the kids in my neighborhood. They either walked or they talked to the park, but imagine if this was a regular and the new plan was implemented. You would have been given the same access to the needs that was people in poverty, black and brown people of color, as well as lower and working class people deserve to have the same opportunities as advanced physically. And it's unfair to walk and talk about just because of something out of their view. If this plan was to be in place, some of the things would just drop out. A friend of mine who was a college told me about how one of the bus drivers at her school had quit, so we had to merge a bunch of the bus stops together, and some of them ultimately just got dropped. And at my own school, I go to Atherton, a lot of my friends and my peers have been late or absent to school because of the issue with buses. And when they are there, they don't know what's going on, and that is putting them really far behind. And a lot of them might not be able to graduate because of this issue, and that isn't fair. JCPS has a no student left behind policy, and this is putting children and many people behind, and that is not fair. Do not leave any of us behind.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Avery Tandy, a sophomore at DuPont High School.
Throughout my life, I have been privileged enough to have certain experiences that have set me up for academic and personal success. While many of those experiences have been outside of school, one of the major contributing factors to that success has been the ability to attend a magnet high school. JCPS is a district that thrives on the diversity of its inhabitants, but furthermore, attending a magnet school with the main pillar of diversity has allowed me the opportunity to see people with unique opinions and interests. However, an issue that our district faces is the potential of the withdrawal of busing to magnet schools. While we continue to fail to recognize the detrimental consequences that follow this decision, not only for the diversity of our students, but for its academic successes of the schools. Even though my family was given the opportunity to place my siblings and I in any school, they decided to put us in a school that was rich in diversity while also focusing on hands-on Montessori schooling. Historically, Forge Taylor Montessori Elementary has been filled with students from all walks of life, even while being located in a lower socioeconomic environment. Throughout my academic career, attending schools such as this has allowed me to expand my knowledge academically while learning about the different experiences and challenges people face, all of those schools being magnet schools. Being at Manual has allowed me to navigate the world and see people as themselves instead of only seeing their background, which is a necessity for all in order for our society to be prosperous with open-minded and empathetic individuals. Acknowledging the importance of diversity in our schools is vital in combating the busing issue in our district. Now, it is important to recognize that there is no easy fix for this issue. However, I can confidently say that the solution of taking away busing from magnet schools is definitely not the correct one. Many people, including myself, have chosen to go to a magnet school for its diverse people and experiences, things that many schools do not have. Magnet schools such as Manual and Central have used diversity to create positive change within their communities. And by depleting busing to those institutions, we are stripping all the progression that they have made. Even if we don't want to acknowledge it, other schools do not have the same opportunities and resources as magnet schools, which are conveyed in our test scores. Not only will taking away busing deplete the diversity of our schools, but will also lead to an even greater unproportionate learning gap. We have come so far in the progression of our education systems, integrating schools for equal opportunity and integrating schools for equal opportunity and increasing diversity, but by limiting busing, we are taking a huge step backwards, which will only create unwanted repercussions. We need to take time to think about our future while also acknowledging the growth from the past. And that starts with further unifying our schools. I urge you to keep busing available to magnet schools on behalf of the students of JCPS. Thank you for your time.
I'm a senior and softball player at Atherton High School. I may be the only person here who is not here to discuss transportation, but I am here to advocate for equality, just like many of them. Female athletes across this country and right here in Jefferson County are not able to participate in athletics safely because of the lack of equality in the conditions of our athletic facilities. As a female athlete myself, I have seen firsthand how devastating the neglect to our facilities can be. Last year, on April 22nd, we had a home game at Atherton. My little sister was standing next to me in the dugout as the other team was batting. Their player hit a routine foul ball. A line drive that, had our field provided the protection it should, would have hit a fence or a net. Instead, this ball came into the dugout, hit my sister in the head, ricocheted feet in the air, and all the way back into the field. This hit left her flat on her back and disoriented. Gave her a concussion that kept her from being able to perform athletically and academically for weeks, and with headaches and dizziness that a year later have yet to completely go away. I have witnessed and experienced other career-ending and life-changing injuries that were a result of the state of our field, all while our baseball field is in perfectly playable condition. This is all a clear violation of Title IX, which guarantees female students equality in athletics. Yet female athletes throughout our region are experiencing these same struggles because male athletics and facilities continue to be better funded and supported to this day, nearly 52 years after Title IX was put into place. Being a part of athletics and being able to play the sport that you love is such an integral piece of so many students' high school experiences. Whether you plan to go to the next level or not, The discipline, camaraderie, and countless values that participation in athletics instills in young people are lessons that will stick with us for good. Personally, I know that softball has shaped my life and made me the person that I am today. And I nor any other female athlete should have to face so much adversity just to be able to do what we love on a field that is safe to play on. I am a senior. I would never personally experience the impact of this change. I stand in front of you to advocate not for myself, not even just for the Atherton softball program, but for every girl in this region who is deprived of the same resources as their male peers. And I can undoubtedly say that having access to a facility that promotes the health and safety of athletes rather than puts them in harm's way would make a world of difference for every girl who is and ever will be a part of these programs. Building this field at Atherton would guarantee every girl in this region has the opportunity to play on a field that is worth being proud of. A field that will allow them to grow as athletes and people safely. It protects other female student athletes from ever having to experience what my teammates and I have endured for years. The construction of this facility is a massive step in the right direction, and I can only hope that what I've said today has conveyed to you the magnitude of the change that you have the ability to make by building this facility. This facility is a massive step in the right direction after years of treating female athletes in this county and region as an afterthought and subjecting us to playing conditions that are unsafe and unequal. The decision you make will determine whether we finally grant these struggling female athletic programs with the equality that's been guaranteed and not truly given for decades, or if we continue with 52 years of empty promises.
We have with us tonight Dr. Tanya Creator from Systematic. She will come at this time along with Ms. Porter to walk us through the transportation audit report that has been provided to the district.
Yellow.
Good evening, members of the board, district staff, and community members. I'm Dr. Tasha Prieto, President of Prismatic Services and manager of the Prismatic Project Team for the completed phase 1 assessments of the transportation activities of August 9th, 2023. Tonight I'll spend a few minutes reviewing both our process and results of that assessment, and then I'd be happy to respond to any questions the board might have. Prismatic's objectives of this project are the objectives outlined in the district's RFPs. I've included the RFP language here. The use of the term "the incident" for what happened on August 9th with the districts, so we used that in our report. As we noted in Chapter 1 of our report, thoroughly identifying and analyzing the root causes of the incident required reviewing district plans and actions going back several years. We came to the conclusion that the incident was not the result of actions taken or not taken just on August 9th, but rather as a result of actions taken or not taken in 3 separate or related initiatives: school choice, school start times, and routing optimization. That's why you'll see timelines included in various chapters. Those timelines show what we feel are the key events for the various initiatives. For example, the school choice initiative had its start back in 2017. Then, because we recognized that there were 3 separate initiatives, you'll see the report has a chapter devoted to each. As our work progressed, we realized that we needed to add a chapter on purchasing and contracting, since some of the causes of the incident had roots there. We then added Chapter 6, which includes findings across into several areas, as a way to keep the report as short as possible. To accomplish this work, we provided a team of 5 consultants and 4 analysts. Ms. Renee Fulligar has a strong background as a manager of a routing team for a school district in Virginia. She has been a Prismatic consultant since 2016. Mr. Jerry Williams is a CPA with a long history of managing school performance reviews for the Texas State Comptroller's Office before he became a consultant. He has worked with Prismatic since 2008. Mr. Doug Carter has been a transportation director in multiple school districts and managed operations in large urban as well as small rural environments. He has worked with Prismatic since 2020. Dr. Stacy Williams is a former principal, teacher, and school district administrator. She has been with Prismatic since 2022. Then, we had 4 Prismatic analysts who assisted in compiling and analyzing data, watching years of JCPS school board meetings, managing the principal survey, and observing bus operations on site. As for me, I manage the team. I've been a consultant in pre-K-12 since 1995. I founded Prismatic in 2007. To date, we have provided consultant services for school districts and agencies overseeing school districts in 32 states. This assessment is Prismatic's 300th client engagement. Of particular interest for this assessment, I, Renee, and some of the analysts worked together with Anne Arundel County Public Schools in Maryland on their 2023-2024 school start time switch. Anne Arundel is slightly larger than JCPS in terms of the number of students eligible for district transportation and 193 square miles larger in terms of geography. They had a successful school opening this year. This phase was data intensive. We collected data from the district in response to an initial data request of 55 items, then additional data items as the study progressed. District staff provided 220 items in response to the initial data request. Thank you for that. We interviewed 6 school board members and several persons external to the district. The analysts completed observations of buses arriving to or leaving from 32 schools around the district. We launched a quick survey of principals regarding the incident and activities leading up to the incident. We received 109 responses to that survey. We heard from staff via 89 interviews. Some staff were interviewed multiple times or by multiple consultants. Finally, across all the initiatives, we spent a total of 32 days on site. That time did not include many activities, interviews we completed via Zoom. In the interest of time, I'll next review the biggest conclusions from each area. These are not all the conclusions in our 140-page report because appendices don't count, but I do hope to convey the overall pattern of what we found. In the area of school choice, it was evident that the multi-year planning process did not adequately include the transportation department or transportation considerations. This was, unfortunately, a thread we found throughout our work. The November 2020 management audit by KDE recommended that JCPS develop a process to include the transportation department in discussions around school choice. This recommendation was largely not implemented. As presented to the board for approval in June 2022, the school choice initiative did not include crucial information about the impact on transportation absent other major district actions. Internal staff estimates of the transportation impact was an additional 100 routes would be needed, absent other major district actions, but that was not made abundantly obvious in the plan presented to the board for approval. In the area of school start times, the biggest challenge began at the beginning. The parameters by which Alpha Route, the vendor selected to provide both the school start time and routing optimization solution, was to design the new transportation system were captured in a framework spreadsheet. On the spreadsheet, the vendor asked for a number of parameters, such as what is the earliest possible morning student pickup and maximum student ride time. The vendor's frameworks left out some questions, but the bigger problem was in the responses the district provided and the interpretation of those responses. In the frameworks, the district explicitly gave permission for routes to be unmirrored, perhaps thinking it would only be used in a few instances and perhaps without a firm understanding of how disruptive extreme amounts of route unmirroring would be. Also in the frameworks, the district explicitly allowed for a solution that allowed buses to arrive to schools up to 40 minutes before the opening of school and up to 40 minutes after the dismissal bell. Prismatic confirmed that this district staff intended this 40-minute allowance on either side of the school day to be an outer limit, to be used sparingly. However, the vendor's subsequent interpretation allowed the 40-minute allowance to be widely applied in the final school start time schedule. This was not well communicated by the vendor to the district, but was quickly identified as a problem once school-level staff had access to their bus schedule. There were a number of challenges in the routing optimization work. The first was the timeline. In developing a routing solution, the district and vendor attempted to follow the same routing timeline as in years past, without acknowledging that, perhaps, a massive wholesale overhaul of the district's routes might require some additional time to fine-tune or additional time for transportation operations and drivers to adjust to them. This timeline left no room for rigorous vetting of the vendor solution by district staff. Moreover, the vendor failed to meet some of the informal deadlines that existed for this project. Second, the vendor provided few specifics as the work progressed. This made it impossible for district staff to understand what routing trade-offs were happening as iterations were developed. It made it impossible for district staff to truly assess the quality of the potential solution. Finally, the solution, as delivered in July 2023, had myriad problems. This included lengthy routes, buses somehow scheduled to serve multiple schools in the same tier, some schools not included at all, some students not included at all, and poor routing choices, such as expecting students to traverse unsafe paths to get to their bus stop. In the area of purchasing and contracting, one of the biggest challenges was a lack of solid contract management. JCPS does not always formally designate a manager for its professional services contracts. Such a position would typically be assigned to monitor the work of vendors, identify whether the project is progressing on schedule, and ensure that vendors are not paid until the work is done well. As part of this challenge, payments to some vendors appear to have been made prior to receipt of services or deliverables. In agreement documents for the vendors who worked on the initiatives, scopes of work were non-specific and lacked timelines. Second, JCPS seems to enter into sole sourcing agreements with little research. Sole sourcing should be used when there truly are no other vendors who could possibly provide the services or goods the district seeks. The example I always tend to use is Microsoft Office. If you're going to buy a Microsoft Office product, there are no other choices. They should not be entered into simply because a potential vendor tells the district that, to their knowledge, they are the only vendor who can do such and such. Sole source justifications certainly should not be written by the potential vendor. Compounding the challenge in this area, JCPS did not do its due diligence in selecting some of the vendors associated with the initiatives. References could have been checked more thoroughly. Finally, the development of all three initiatives was largely top-down. The transportation department was not involved. Leadership insufficiently vetted ideas and options with their own experts, those in the transportation department. Bringing in other departments like IT could have increased the odds for success for the initiatives. Principals were not included in a meaningful way. In the planning for all three initiatives, district staff did not provide the school board or the public sufficient documented information about challenges, constraints, and costs. The lack of detailed information made it difficult for the board to assess the feasibility of the proposed plans. A critical piece of information not shared was the likely increased number of bus routes needed to implement the school choice initiative. Internally, staff noted a need for 100 to 125 additional routes. As one staff member termed it, quote, everyone knew. Yet this was not shared with the board in a public meeting. After reviewing available documents, files, interviewing JCPS leadership, surveying principals, the Prismatic team concludes that a number of conditions gave rise to the incident. The conditions included these JCPS areas operating at less than best practice levels: program management, system implementation, organizational communications, decision-making methodology, and contractor performance. In the course of this study, Prismatic found little in the way of active project management for school choice initiatives, school start times, or routing optimization. There was no evidence of the use of project management tools. Few project meetings appear to have resulted in saved written notes that could be shared with us. In terms of communication systems, JCPS had difficulties both internally with communications across departments and externally with the school board and greater public. Internally, not all the departments who should have been involved in initiative planning were at the table, as detailed in Chapter 6. This was a fault of structured communications. Also internally, JCPS did not have ways of listening to communications that would have provided early warnings of oncoming school start problems. Externally, JCPS staff did not provide sufficient details about obstacles potentially in the way of successful implementation. If the board had known that prior to proposing the school choice initiative, the district projected it to require an additional 100 to 125 routes, or prior to proposing the school choice initiative, the trend data indicated that JCPS would start the school year with 550 bus drivers, or that prior to proposing any of the three initiatives, the transportation department staff was not materially involved in their planning, would it have approved all three for implementation in 2023-24? At the end of Chapter 7, we provided a roll-up of the recommendations contained in each chapter. Collectively, we believe that implementing those recommendations will address the conditions that led to the JCPS incident. With that, I'd be happy to answer the board's questions after just two more notes. First, this work had to contend with typical time and budget constraints. We've done our best within those constraints, but acknowledge that assessments such as these are never perfect. Second, I realize that the board knows this, but the general community might not. The invitation for me to present our Phase 1 report today was extended on rather short notice, so I apologize in advance if I don't have all the answers you seek with me tonight, but I will do my best.
Thank you, Dr. Prieto, for accommodating us tonight and for providing us with this report. Before the board, acknowledging their questions, we are inviting members of the RMAC committee to come at this time in the spirit of transparency in order to partner with us in our question asking segments. Members of the RMAC committee led by Mr. Jim Rose will come at this time. We have with us tonight Mr. Jim Rose, Ms. Robert Mitchell, Mr. Pedro Bryant, and Mr. Wilbur. This Porter is our Director of Internal Audits. Would you please introduce the RMAC committee and reintroduce what they do in their place in JCPS?
All right. So with us, we have the RMAC committee, that's the Audit Risk Management Advisory Committee. The role of RMAC is to report to the board, advise the board about risk issues at JCPS. They also provide oversight to the internal audit function. The chair of RMAC is James Rose. The co-chair is Rhonda Mitchell. Other members that we have here today, Pedro Bryant and Wilbur Whitfield. Thank you all for joining us.
And one other member, Dr. Ross. So I'm going to start out, and again, as May pointed out, our role is to help the board in terms of perspective, thinking about audit and risk and governance. And so as part of that, one of the things we do is help review audit work, but also perspective. Now I'm going to start out with, parroting, Dr. Prieto's comments that she was asked to come just a few days ago, I believe, and so we received the report on Friday. So we're just now, really digesting on it. And so what we have today, what we've been asked to do, is ask some preliminary questions, just to kind of help us in terms of understanding the report in detail, with the caveat that we expect to come back with some additional comments and questions. As well as, we obviously are very interested in leadership response. The district and the cabinet are going to look at the recommendations and approach those. And so we certainly haven't had the opportunity to really talk and speak with them about their perspectives and expectations. And so that's something that we can certainly look to do in the year. So with that, one of the things that comes to mind in the report is just the balance and kind of root cause analysis. I know there's a phase 1 and a phase 2. Phase 2 has to go through a data approval process, so the use of patient collected in healthcare, but student data. And so I know that's going to take a bit, but can you just let us know, is there additional root cause analysis that will be part of the phase two are anticipated, and to what degree is the root cause analysis in phase one here, you know, the extent of the root cause analysis we expect to do.
So phase one is the analysis of the incident and any root cause analysis that we were able to complete with the data available. Phase two is a different key portion of the work. As noted in the district's RFP, phase two is perform a comprehensive evaluation of the transportation program. This may include, but not be limited to, an assessment of a number of different areas, identify deficiencies and opportunities for improvement in the transportation program, provide recommendations for remediation of deficiencies, provide recommendations to improve the transportation program. So overall, phase two is what we would consider to be a more typical performance review of a department. We planned to focus on the HR piece, which would include recruitment and retention of bus drivers, vehicle maintenance, and the overall organization and structure of the department, since those were not strong areas of focus in phase one. But to respond to your question, to the extent that root cause analysis for the incident is essentially complete with this project. Would further recommendations for improving transportation come out of phase two? Yes, because that is the charge for phase two.
Thank you, and we appreciate the work that your team did in the time frame that it was allowed to do it in. But I do want to ask, in your analysis, was there any consideration to the parent and student experience in your assessment?
In terms of what happened on August 9th itself?
For the incident?
Yes.
Were you able to talk to parents and
No,
students?
we were not able to talk to parents or students for it. We certainly looked at the data that were available for August 9th, and we have collected GPS data and other data to paint a picture of what has happened in terms of the student experience from August 9th through mid-January, certainly. We decided that that was more appropriate to include in the phase two report
Okay.
as part of the current condition.
Okay, that was my follow-up, was would that be something included in that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Chapter 6, cross-area findings. These include 2 or more threads covered individually in previous chapters, whether it be SCI, SST, or RO, or JCPS purchasing. In each of these sections, at the conclusion of each section, the report says these recommendations can be implemented with existing resources. Can you describe what that looks like?
So in terms of the recommendations that are in chapter 6, let me just, for those who don't have the report. There's only 3 in chapter 6, which is include representatives of all departments and major initiative planning. I think that what we pointed out, I believe the correct acronym is SARAC, the committee that developed the school choice initiative, largely had it right in its operation, with the unfortunate oversight of not sufficiently including transportation in the planning model. And what we were recommending for that is that major initiatives in the future within the district include an explicit effort to include every potentially touched department. So the one that I like to use as an example is you should have food services at the table. And everyone will why? Well, every decision you make in terms of school start times and school schedules and things will affect food services. And so including them at the table, that can be accomplished with existing resources, because that is just a decision that leadership needs to make to be that kind of inclusive. Provide better documentation better documented information to the school board and the public regarding major initiatives. I think that could also be included in completed with existing resources. It's a change in how data are presented to the school board. It's a change in what we're recommending. A change in the kinds of questions that the board members ask to make sure that everyone is fully satisfied that all options have been looked at. And then finally, evaluating the potential for implementing greater depot use. We included this as a cross-cutting issue because it does cut across potentially school start times, as well as routing optimization. One of the things that this district did well, by all accounts previously, wasn't using depots in transportation. And weren't able to definitively determine what percentage of your routes involved depots, but we were somewhere around the 70% mark in the prior state. The after state with the new routing, we're somewhere down around the 20% mark. And having previously said publicly, the district previously said publicly that routing with depots was efficient, the move away from that seems odd. In terms of being able to build that capacity back in, one of the things that we found within the transportation department is, no, the transportation department has not had the benefit of AI until last year, has not had the benefit of technology tools in large part. Technology tools that if we were coming in 2 years ago to the district, we would have said, y'all need to get some technology. And now. But the department has a wealth of experience inside the heads of a number of long-term tenured employees there who've been doing it without the benefit of technology and who likely could bring back many of the pieces that are missing now.
Trying to stay on the same thread with technology. I assume, have you taken the need for the new CIO, Chief Information Officer?
That's
So, I would encourage you on return phase 2 to do that, because it's a new cabinet member that has, in our perspective, a background in information technology and strategy. And so, obviously some key recommendations in here in terms of technology, use of technology, disparate data. Data is obviously a key point. And so I think overall, when you look at management's recommendations, you would expect to see how the Chief Information Officer is a key part of this whole value chain.
Just one follow-up question. Throughout the year, at the beginning of the year, parents have to register kids for school during the academic year. They're making transfers. When you look at the size of this district, as a parent, register kids for school, or they're transferring, or new kids are coming to the school, are we using technology at the level that when a parent goes in, or does a parent have the capability of registering a school, a child for a school, into a system, when that information is entered, they know what bus they're going to school on, what bus they're coming home, they know what school they're going to attend, because all these things can populate to give departments in the entire system numbers to better plan. Are we at that level?
I can't speak to the level of technology deployed in the student enrollment system. What I can speak to is that the system used, using the system with a small s, the process used in the 23-24 school year, in terms of communications between the district's student information system and the transportation apps and the routing optimization piece that existed was not of the nature that something like what you just said could happen. Yeah, there were a number of pieces that required not exactly manual entry, but it's not as easy on the transportation piece that you'd be able to go, okay, this is what school I'm going to, now I know what bus I'm on. And that's one of the things that was a challenge for the district. It's probably a challenge every year for the district, given the systems that have been in place, but it really struggled this year.
One clarifying question. I definitely applaud the comment on the procurement rule to have a clear, owner oversight of a contractor. But I can, in organizations that go, along in different ways. Either operations is accountable, yet they're doing it episodically, so they don't really know how to work the contractor. On the other hand, contracting kind of like takes it on their own niche, but then they end up taking accountability from operations. So kind of clarifying that dynamic, and there's not a right or wrong reason where to land or lean, but there's certainly key things to really put in place and which direction to go.
Agreed. I think that one of the things that we struggled with in terms of the purchasing and contracting here is, and perhaps the piece that you're seeking is a stronger process before we allow sole sourcing. A stronger process in terms of, you know, really bringing together the subject matter experts, the operations people you're talking about, with the procurement people to actually sit down and develop, you know, what does a statement of work look like? What's an acceptable statement of work? You know, what should be the requirements in an RFP? And what kinds of deadlines? Now, the purchasing people, the purchasing staff, you know, have the knowledge of how contracts like that should be written, the kinds of contracts that will protect the district, ensure that the district gets what it's paying for, doesn't perhaps pay for services not yet delivered, and they need to bring that experience to bear with the operations people. The operations side of the house needs to work with them to be able to articulate what they need. And so that's more of a collaborative process that probably needs to happen. And was a struggle on this one.
And then, you know, I mentioned as a root cause, so we are looking in some just forecasting, you know, looking at future questions, certainly with the HR area, so strategic HR, general design, culture, rotation of staff, and silo breakdown. So that's one of the things that we didn't necessarily expect to see here, but seeing those root causes, you know, what how those issues to occur. So the work we did here, the timeline and things you have, but more work to do, obviously, in terms of thinking through underlying causes. And then, I mean, the driver shortage, I didn't take that off the table, but I mean, certainly that has exacerbated a lot of the issues here. It's not just the number of drivers, it's actually accurate today.
I think that it is true there's a national driver shortage. That's absolutely true. I have not run the numbers lately to compare with the options and additional benefits, not benefits, but additional pay options that the district offers, just how well-paying the jobs, bus driving jobs are here in comparison to some of our other clients. But I would venture to say that the crisis kinds of payments that the district is making for drivers make that career fairly lucrative here. I do think that, well, I don't think, I know, it's true that we have clients that do not have a shortage of drivers. And why is that? Part of it is pay. We had one very smart district last year figure out how much all the other counties around them were paying and upped their pay by $1 and sent out a flyer to every transportation department around. They started with no bus driver shortage. It's a moving target, I will grant you that. I do think that recently in the February board meeting, the HR department here demonstrated some recent success in a hiring blitz. They were quoted as saying they had 170 people attend a one-day hiring event for drivers. So I think that, you know, there is still potential here for hiring more drivers. It just may be something we need to tackle, you know, 20 different ways at once.
You didn't do it, I think you said you didn't do it.
Phase 2 is when I have an HR expert to come in to look at that specifically and probably to take a look at the comparable pay nearby. It was mentioned to us, and I can't verify this, but that a comp and class study had not been done recently for the school district. So limited piece, looking at the bus drivers, is what we'll accomplish in phase 2, one of the things.
Anything from us or could we kick you off when you're around the question?
Did Ms. Goodall, you don't have any questions?
Mr. Yeah, so again, just in defense here, he started like last week. So, yeah.
Just jumped in the fire.
Right.
Let me express our thanks on behalf of the board and our entire community for your service to this district. You all, RMAC is comprised of community members. You do this in service to this district and to children out of the goodwill of your hearts. And so we thank you for your service and thank you for being here tonight on such short notice. Mr. Marshall.
Can I just say
that as we've been talking about student outcomes, focused governance, and structure of meetings, how helpful this is. Because I think from your report, as well as the questions that are asked now, we really do have way too many silos in a lot of areas. And so continuing to find ways to work to bring those silos together is what we need to do. So thank you for the structure tonight. I do want to say one question in particular. In your audit report, you mentioned the inadequate information presented to the board. In what ways did you come to the conclusion that the information presented was inadequate for these larger decisions?
So one of the things that we were trying to do with this, once we, and it didn't take us long to figure out, as I said in the presentation, that what happened on August 9th was not a result of actions taken or not taken just on that day. It had a history leading up to it. And one of the things that we struggled with in this project was committees or meetings. We asked for meeting notes. It was in part of our initial data request list. We said, okay, we'd like to see all the project plan. I'm a project management professional. I want to see the Gantt charts. I want to see the timelines. I want to see all of those tools that you use. I want to see if you were holding, weekly status meetings. I'd like to see all the notes for those. We were told there largely were none. And there was not a lot of written documentation. So I assigned one of our analysts to begin looking through all of the board documentation as a written record for us, and also watched all of your board meetings going back to at least 2018. And I wasn't a popular boss for a while. But so in doing that, we looked at everything that you looked at, tried to look at it in the moment. And so essentially we sat there and said, okay, well, if I were sitting on the board and I was getting this presentation, what else would I want to know? And then we asked for and received a copy of all of the written questions that board members have submitted going back until I think 2018 or 2019. And then looking those as well. We do recognize communication happens in a lot of different ways. And so based on those, we had questions about what you were presented with. And some of the things that may not have stuck out to the board members initially, stuck out to us as people who work in consulting and transportation. When it is a common thing, every client that we have, and the small ones and the large ones, everywhere in between, when we first sit down with them, they tell us we are completely unique. Okay, everyone tells us that. Absolutely true. And it is true, right? In the general sense of the word unique. What stuck out at us was that what we saw in the board meetings were uses of phrases like most complex transportation system in the nation. I'm like, I work in transportation consulting. Hang on a second. Maybe you are, right? Maybe you are. But we concluded that was, we've seen more complex. We've seen more difficult. We've seen larger school districts with transportation issues. We've seen school districts that transport magnet students without a perceived challenge. And so we had to base that comment on what we were able to look at, which we believe to be all easy to look at. If we've missed something and there was a whole big other book of documentation we provided to you outside of those documents, then maybe we revise our opinion. But we were looking at what you were looking at and trying to look at it at the same time as time frame.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and I think another thing to point out is there are times where, particularly to you, Ms. Duncan, and Ms. Porter before, took a lot of heat from people for decisions that you made in your previous years. And your defense always was you went with the information that was presented. And I don't think I've understood that more than we sit here today. And so apologies to you for what you had to take because we didn't fully yet understand the complexity of that. And just finally, your final assertion in your audit says that this district has the resources to be able to implement this transportation plan, but that's in stark contrast to what is being offered tonight. So why is your opinion so opposite of what the district is suggesting?
Or I guess what impotence led you?
I think that I can offer a few observations for discussion that do not seem to have previously been thoroughly discussed. And the first, the district points to its daily routes exceeding the number of daily drivers available as a primary, if not maybe only reason why it's asking to end magnet transportation. Yet, in your 13 February board meeting, the district reported some success with the hiring blitz on 10 February. It was stated in the meeting that folks were waiting in line at 8:30 when that event didn't start till 9 o'clock, and that 170 folks attended. So my question would be, how many of those turned into drivers who are working for the district right now? How many are likely to turn into drivers for 24-25? Does that cut the number of drivers from 65 short, which is the last number that I have, it may be greater now, but does it cut the number from 65 drivers short on a daily basis to 30? And if it does, how many more blitzes would be needed to eliminate the driver shortage? And if you address the driver shortage, do you still need to end magnet transportation? That's the question. And then this is in response to our report. I don't know if it's been provided to you yet. JCPS staff noted a number of activities that it can undertake for the 24-25 school year. So they read our report, provided a management response to a portion of our report. They haven't provided a full management response. But the activities that they noted they could undertake included reviewing options for adjusting school start times, reviewing options to moving schools from mini tiers to major tiers, and reworking the vendor-provided routes. District staff noting that it can do these things as a way to improve transportation operations for 24-25 is wonderful. It's also in line with what we said they can do for 24-25 in our report. However, there's no reason these activities should be contingent on eliminating magnet transportation. There's no reason they couldn't undertake these activities on the current system of routes and determine what incremental improvements could be made. Moving the start times of a few schools could make a major difference in routing. I do routing, I understand this. And I think we tried to, in words and pictures within the report, explain that it's an entire system where moving one or two quick pieces can have a huge impact. It doesn't require dismantling the entire thing and starting over. It requires looking at where your largest points of pain are and deciding, okay, we're going to move this little piece here and this little piece here, and then see what kinds of impact that makes. As the staff uncovers those kinds of improvements, they can be brought to the board for review and approval. The reworking of the vendor-provided routes could be accomplished without board approval and could take place all the way up until the drivers are handed their route sheets. Indeed, all three of these activities could have been ongoing since last August. Or they could have been ongoing at least since November when, in conversations with your staff, we made those suggestions. One item that's been left out of the JCPS staff response that I think should be brought to the forefront as well is reviewing current bus loads. I mentioned earlier on that we were able to help Anne Arundel County schools move their school start times. One of the things that I did not mention, aside from them being larger than you and providing transportation for magnet students, is that they told us that they had to do it with the same number of buses as they had before. They were shortening the window and giving us some constraints in terms of what had to start when, and we could not add buses to their system. How were we able to do that? It was not magic. It was a complete and total grind for a year and a half. But the secret sauce, if there was one, was we looked at bus counts. We knew they had buses that were running more than half empty on a regular basis. In our observations of the 32 schools, one of the things that I asked my staff to look at was how many buses that appeared to have less than 20 students. That's totally informal observation, but we did look at 32 schools, and in every school we found at least a couple. So there's a great place to start. Now, why is that bus empty? I can't tell you that. I can just tell you what we observed. It was empty. Or less than 20 students, sorry, not empty. And so I think those are the kinds of things that should be discussed before perhaps you take a very drastic step.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Ms. Duncan.
I was relieved to see that some of our responses or that our responses were in line with what you were recommending and that we were moving in those right directions. One of the things you mentioned in our conversation earlier was bus companies that nationally provide drivers to districts. Are you aware of districts that are using these bus companies? And do we know about them?
I answered the first part. Yes, one of our current clients is using a provider that does 200 of their routes. That's one company. There are companies nationwide and actually international, if you count from Canada plus the United States, that provide transportation services where they provide the bus and the driver. Contract for transportation has been around for a long time in the K-12 industry. I understand it hasn't been a huge part of the history here. That doesn't mean it can't be. In terms of which way to go, one of the things that I've always kept in my head, someone a long time ago told me, when in trouble, panic. And they don't mean panic, run out screaming. They mean try a bunch of fixes at the same time. See what's going to work. Maybe 3 or 4 of them work, maybe all of them work. But one of the things that struck me was the district demonstrated it could successfully outsource more of its transportation load right at the beginning of school when it did so with its existing contractor. Do more. I understand that contractor can't handle more, fine. Ask for other contractors.
That was what I was curious about and want to know if we have pursued that. We used to have contracted bus drivers, use them a lot. So, maybe that is something that we need to call back out. You mentioned the use of depots. One of the things that I keep thinking about is that we have depots set up this year, and I'm sure they're facilitating getting our kids to our magnet and traditional schools. And I would like to know if the depots that we have set up this year could be used effectively for continuing that to get them there. And I don't know how many buses that requires, but if our depots are doing that this year, then I know I have a grandson that goes to a depot and then takes that straight to the magnet school. And if it's working this year, I'm curious about if we couldn't have it work next year. But anyway, I think you probably answered my 2 main questions, and I appreciate so much your analysis and the depth that you went into concerning our contract challenges and how we have like historic, systemic issues with a lot of these things, and we do need to be directed to how we can fix those. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. Ms. McIntosh.
Thank you for being here, especially again on short notice. I know that can be really challenging. I can get really in the weeds with some of these, but I think we see a lot of, in the report, we see a lot of broken systems and processes. And those are things that I think we're in the process of addressing and in the future can address those. My 2 big concerns. The lack of available information. Did you and your team feel that that was a willful and intentional withholding of information? Or do you think that was more of, again, a lack of poor processes?
I think that we had some concerns about the lack of information because we understood the magnitude of the 3 things that the board was trying to do all at once. And we helped districts through essentially doing one of those things at one time, and understood the incredible importance of keeping track of all the moving pieces, keeping track of, oh my gosh, we've had to make we've had to bend here a little bit, and okay, why did we decide to bend in this direction? And what date did we decide to bend in this direction? Who approved us bending in this direction? So that later on, when we get 6 months down the road, we're like, hey, why are we doing that? We remember what our process was. What we found when we got here was, as I said, not a lot of documentation to help us clearly see that kind of process management and project management going on. Do I think it was, intentionally willful? No, I don't think it was the culture of the district to do those kinds of things. I question why the vendors that supported you in these initiatives did not do those kinds of things. And quite honestly, we do it with our clients because we want to make sure we're covered if questions come up later on. And I question, how did the responsibility for documenting the project management piece so that we know, and a simple example, what's our absolute outer deadline? If we don't make it to this deadline with these 20 things in a row, do we pull the plug? Kind of thing. And we didn't have that kind of a project deadline timeline plan, which allowed things to slip. And so I don't think it was willful. As a person who is, far more comfortable inside of Excel spreadsheet flipping pivots than I am in doing pretty much anything else, we always want more data. I think we had enough data to be able to see what was going on, but it would have been nice to have.
Thank you. My second question goes back to your, it's very early, I think it's on page 1-5. That staff either explicitly or tacitly expressed concerns about retaliation if their interview responses were shared with district staff. Did that seem to be a general culture, or was it more of specific offices or names? And I certainly wouldn't want you to repeat names. Were they concerned about their individual supervisor, for example, or was it more a JCPS-wide cultural problem?
We included that statement in the report because it was more than one person. It was a good size, larger than a handful number of individuals that explicitly or tacitly expressed concerns about talking to us. We did have one individual early on in the process flat out refuse to talk to us. And it did not, to your question, it did not seem that they were afraid of their direct supervisor. It was, they were afraid of repercussions generally. We had one individual provide details of what they perceived to be repercussions for past actions in questioning decisions, and they offered that as an example as to why they were reluctant to discuss anything substantive with us. So it did not seem to be that I'm simply afraid of my specific boss.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McIntosh.
Thank you, Chair Schultz. So we've had a number of audits over the past 12 years encompassing a wide range of things. How many audits have we had? 6. So do you have any thoughts on why many of the issues that you've identified have not been previously identified? Because, in other words, Kentucky Department of Education, Council for Great City Schools, among others, have given us a pretty clean bill of health. So do you agree that your findings would be divergent with that? And if so, what might account for that?
I do not agree that they would be divergent. Your 2020 audit from the Kentucky Department of Education pointed out explicitly, find ways to include transportation to a greater degree in your development of school choice opportunities. It also included a second recommendation that has slipped my mind, but was also directly relevant to the school choice plan. One of the things that we decided not to include in the report was, if you picture the things that led up to the incident as being a series of dominoes, which were the first dominoes to fall, because, as we pointed out, a number of these things started years before they were officially a thing. But if you had to point to a first domino, I would point to the lack of transportation being explicitly included in the school choice initiative, pointed out by the Kentucky Department of Education. And so I think that these things are congruent. I also think that sometimes when you're having reviews done, if, things are floating along well enough, you don't necessarily dig deeper to see if there's an issue. And it's only when you get to where there's a crisis that you dig in and say, okay, really, what's really going on here?
Is it possible for you to make any statements based on what you know to this point as to why transportation seems to have been so marginal to this process? It's, because that's one thing that it really just kind of defies credulity, that could be allowed to happen.
I would agree with you, it would seem to defy credulity. I think, however, we have documented that that's what happened. And as to why, I think the way we stated in the report is these initiatives were largely led by a fairly small group of leaders, and that leadership was provided top down. Now, do they feel that they have the knowledge and background to adequate for transportation at the table? I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I think that if they were asked, they probably would say that, yeah, they probably thought they had it covered.
And they did not.
I think the incident speaks for itself.
Standard, so, and I apologize, I forget the context in which this statement was made, but I remember it being made several times in the audit that it's best practice, or you recommend like a full year of preparation essentially to roll out. Could you remind me what that specifically is in reference to?
So there's not a written standard for, how long it takes to roll out a school start time change, nor obviously is there one for how to do 3 massive changes on transportation in the same time frame. What I can offer to you is at the same time that you were doing your initiative planning leading up to the start of the school year, we were assisting another district in doing the same thing. We spent 1.5 years working with them, and the only thing they changed, and I say only in quotes, because it was a huge change, but the only thing they changed was school start time. It is, this district is one of the larger districts in the nation, and we often talk about, when you're running a smaller district, it's a power boat, you can make a quick turn. When you're managing this, it's like trying to turn a yacht or a cruise ship. It doesn't happen quickly, and you have a lot of pieces that, until you get into the weeds with it, you may not realize are impacted by something like a school start time change.
Is there a role, as we went through this process with the 3 different strands and trying to roll them all out, it's great to have all this information in retrospect. I hear you saying that you do work on the other end as well, the preparatory end of school districts. Is that in your, is there a role for our internal audit, whether it be now May Porter was Jody Ryan or Armac, in the lead up to these things to kind of try to head off these things? Like what's the best way that you can think of to get ahead of these sorts of cascading kind of problems?
I think I can offer a quick answer in the project management world, and what you want to say. So I think that, I'm not sure if internal audit might be the right place, but project management, a stronger focus on recognizing we're about to do something huge. We need to have everybody at the table, and we need to, encourage dissenting opinions. We need to encourage, go through the process before we come to the plan at the end. And, as much as I sometimes grow frustrated with clients as we're going through the process, I will always agree that the product at the end is better for having been through that.
I believe there's a role for internal audit as well as RMAC, as the internal audit
function, our role is to identify risk, make sure that management has considered risk, communicated that risk, and has a plan in place to mitigate that risk. And so we'd be happy to consult with you all in that way. And then also RMAC is a tool that the board has for its use for the same reason in identifying risk and plans and objectives that you all have.
It's a question. I think one of the things that we observed is just the enterprise risk management concept. So play off, and as part of project management example, the initiatives we implemented when the comments I had on the board was more data on major initiatives. What's a major initiative? How do you define major initiative that needs more focus? So that's a more mature risk management program, which we asked about and you haven't really seen it. So I think that was, when I was talking about root cause, that's really kind of underlying root cause list, as well as kind of the HR, strategic HR, the follow-up. And then, May's been here, she came in, a couple of months before, and their internal audit was on the way out, so I've actually, in another organization I was in, saw that same dynamic where some of the governance folks were changing hands right before an incident. That was a driver of a hiccup here.
Yeah, actually, I mean, we got obviously a lot of very smart people, experienced people that hopefully can help us get ahead of these things, so I hope we can find ways to do that. In terms of the board, what could the board do better? Obviously, we're highly dependent upon information provided to us. It's our job to push, for as much detail as we can get. But as you know, our resources as board members are limited. We're, it's essentially a volunteer position. We all have other jobs. We all, and there's a huge number of issues coming at us all the time. So even if you are being absolutely diligent as a board member, it can, which I think all of us are usually, it can be very difficult to even know which questions to ask, to identify potential problems. Is that an issue for like board leadership, or what would you say about that?
I think that is a difficult issue, absolutely. I think the KSBA provided some guidance on that in one of the documents we quoted in our report. And it is, but I recognize that sometimes board members do not come to the board with a deep K-12 operational background, and it can be difficult to know what questions to ask. I think that some districts, when they bring new board members on, actually provide a pretty good crash course to their own board members in terms of everything that we do and here's how we do it. But I think at the end of the day, it is a process for a board member to continually challenge leadership. Not necessarily in a negative way, but to ensure that they've arrived at the best possible solution. And that may mean, pushing back a decision until you're satisfied that you've received all the information. And that is offered for consideration. In reviewing the board minutes, board meetings, there were several times we came and went, wait, why didn't they ask that question? Okay, maybe they'll think about it that day. But then there was a rush to vote. And I recognize that people want to do things quickly, but the business of government is by its nature not quickly done. And as much as I would love to have everything decided and done tomorrow with most things, that is not the nature of government.
Yeah. So in this case, by the same token, and I have just another few minutes, sorry. Not the same, and this segues into another question I had. We're facing a situation where decisions with imperfect information are going to be necessary because of significant reduced number of drivers from years past. So, did we not, in your view, did we not balance the urgency, with the long-term thinking or the need to, I feel like there was a real urgency to act for a number of reasons, realizing that the information we had was perhaps not perfect.
Urgency to act in terms of the school choice initiative?
In terms of reducing the number of bus routes, in terms of, and to mitigate the driver shortage, in terms of trying to ensure that students were not missing instructional minutes, in terms of trying to get as many older students as possible on the linear bell schedule, which I realize we largely failed to do. All of those things.
In addition to the previous comments I offered about questions I think are reasonable in terms of how many drivers does it take to ease the shortage and how much effort would it take between now and August to fill those driver positions, I do think that the decision before you tonight, which is what I think you're asking about, is short on details I would want to know the answer to. In terms of how many magnet routes would be eliminated precisely, how many magnet students would be eliminated. Did the district consider eliminating just elementary school magnet services, recognizing that high school magnet programs are generally seen as being more pivotal to student experiences? And I understand the urgency, because we want to let parents and students know as much as possible if there's going to be a major change. Absolutely understand that. If we move a school from a 9:40 start time to a 7:40 start time, then yeah, we should give families as much notice as possible. But moving from an 8:10 mini tier to a 7:40, if that addresses some of your route challenges, how much notice should we give parents? That's not as big of a change. What if district staff finds considerable route savings from making the kinds of adjustments that they've already said in their management response they plan to make? What if the district votes to end transportation to 16,000 magnet students and then later finds out you didn't need to make that drastic change?
So contingencies, here's that one point.
I question the need to make that drastic cut now. And especially since, and I'm not saying that this is best practice, but the district's historical timeline for handing routes to bus drivers is middle of July. It's April 1st tomorrow, or this weekend. We have some time. And one of the things that is rather frustrating about this is, we've had time to begin to make these incremental changes. That they haven't necessarily been holistically analyzed within the department, but I do still believe there's time. And if I felt like there was no time left, I would have no compunction about saying that.
Okay. And then final question is, in terms of process, you're continuing to work with the district in the capacity that you're currently contracted with us, are you able to provide advice and ideas based on your experience with transportation going forward into the next year, or are you just confined to kind of a retrospective analysis?
We attempted to provide, many of the recommendations that you see in this report were provided verbally to various district staff in November. In short form, in rough form, with plenty of caveats that we still needed to dot our I's and cross our T's. But, we'd seen enough to know where we were going with the report. And I think that our intent in doing that was to try to help the district do as much as it could to correct what it can for 24-25. Now, our phase 2 report is not due until June-ish. It will have obviously necessarily less impact, and I don't know what we're going to find. We did not begin to look at maintenance, for example, in this last piece. It did not show up as an early problem. Buses were not broken down, and that was not leading to the incident. We'll get to when we review maintenance, maybe we find something else. But our intent in developing the recommendations is to provide things that you can do now, but it is also to help you build towards a fantastic transportation department over the next 5 years. I think that we thrive on providing a collaborative engagement with clients. We're not doing audits from the perspective of when we do them for the state, where we don't say anything while we're in the interview. As we come up with ideas, we share them, we discuss them with staff. So I do think that the next phase of the process might generate some additional ideas for 24, 25. I don't know what they are yet.
I know I said that was the last question, but now this is the last one. So in your view, is it plausible, not understanding that you're not guaranteeing that it's going to happen, is it plausible that we could not reduce routes next year and also eliminate the 7 million instructional minutes that we lost this year due to late buses?
It is plausible that you could not eliminate transportation for magnet students and take a large swack at that 7 million. You were already underwater before in 22, 23. So I think your first goal would be to get back to 22, 23 levels.
Which was what?
I think 2 million.
Okay.
And I would, in doing that, I'm not advocating for you to return to exactly the transportation system
Right.
you had before. You cannot go back.
Understood.
But leverage the triple tiering that you have, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is a tremendous amount of grind work. It needs to happen down at the driver, router, compound, coordinator level.
Right.
But it is possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cole. Ms. Strange.
Thank you for this glaring report. And you and I have had a couple of conversations just from my experience, which is not as an educator, but from a corporate experience. There were some glaring things to me, particularly things like the lack of project management, implementation of the whole process, the timing, test marketing, which there was none, the lack of a single person being in charge of this whole thing, and perhaps the lack of expertise that was needed to make sure it happened. But what we're being told is, and particularly for me as the District 1 representative, that Black and brown students are losing the greatest amount of instructional time based on the transportation issues. And what I don't see in any of this information, or that is contradictory to what I do see in here, when it says that it's quicker to turn around urban school, students who are riding the buses in urban schools, but yet and still the Black and brown students are losing the most instructional time. Is there any reason that you all found for that to be happening?
So we did not look at the data that we were able to obtain at a student demographic level. So I can't speak specifically regarding the experience here. To the extent that you have late buses now, it is a compounding effect from the routing that's in place. So the students that are in the later schools are definitely going to be the most impacted. What we meant by the urban school districts, generally speaking, if you have an urban school district that doesn't have, just look at regular education routing for a minute. In an urban school district, necessarily those students live in a more compact environment.
Right.
You're able to pick up 5 or 6 of them at a bus stop, or 10 or 15 of them at a bus stop, instead of traveling down a country road and picking up a kid every mile and a half. And so you should be able to turn buses more quickly in an urban environment. Then you have to add on the layering effect of whatever other choice programs you have in place, magnet programs or other things that are going on. But that's where you start from with routing.
Right, well, I can even make it more specific. In District 1, the schools are closer together, the students live closer together, but yet and still I didn't see any reason, particularly why those students are the most late to arrive to their schools.
I don't know that I can answer that until we get into details, or if we got into details of looking at specific student groups.
Okay. That's my question.
Thank you, Ms. Strange. Mr. Craig.
Process and time questions. Your preliminary report was provided to management when?
The
The final report was provided to management.
March 18th, right, last Monday?
I believe so.
Was there a preliminary draft provided before last Monday?
Yes.
When was that?
I believe maybe a week and a half before.
Okay. And just as these things go in other projects, how long would you expect the management to have to respond to something as substantive and as thick as this?
I don't know that I have a benchmark for that. Different districts approach it differently. We don't often have a management response document.
Okay.
So I don't have, maybe the audit world has a best practice.
Yeah. In my opinion, it varies. I would say 30 days in order to provide a management response.
So it's fair to say that our findings from this work are still relatively new, relatively raw in a way to the entirety of the district, right? Jim, do you disagree?
No, I would agree, and then I said earlier, the comment that he got, when I went back to, we take the root cause to the next level.
Can you put the mic a little closer, right?
So I agree with that perspective, and then my earlier comments, taking the root cause to an even deeper level in terms of kind of culture and systems. And so the report's got clearly the root cause of the incident, but then underlying that, why don't we have project management, or why don't we have silos, those type of things to kind of get into. So those would be the things we'd be pressing on, which, during May's point here, in the next 30 days, management should be able to address or speak to.
Okay. I feel like it's important to highlight that we still do have good people here trying their best for the students of Jefferson County. Everybody here is doing their best, from the superintendent to the principals to the bus drivers and everybody in the district. It's not like anybody's trying to harm. Everybody's at the table and they're here in this profession because they want to do their best. So of course now it's incumbent upon each of us to decide what to do with this going forward. And I've been considering as the chair a process, and I want to get your feedback, and the first from the two of you, and then from RMAC generally, a proposal that the chair and I discussed about perhaps accepting this report tonight, but asking RMAC to continue to work with you with respect to the results of phase one on the root cause analysis, in addition to receiving a response from management and the adequacy of management's response, and then reporting back to us within 90 days or so on what the response is from the district and how we might best proceed going forward with the results of phase one. Do you have any feedback from the auditor table first?
I think that, I do think it is important that management respond. I don't know that it was intended that the management response be included in this report. That timeframe and additional work around phase one, and if that's the intention for phase 1 too, would likely require some adjustments to the timeframe and maybe other objectives noted in the contract.
I think I'm following you. Any response from you to that concept? From the members of the RMAC, what would you think about working with our team here on creating a deliverable to the Board of Education in 90 days that reports back on what I just outlined?
No, I mean, we're here to help you. I mean, that's what our role is as an advisory group, and certain work we may to help pull that together, so we're really glad to do that.
Thank you. All right. If the chair will allow me, when it comes time to accept the report, I might make that motion at that time. If you will allow me. Thank you. The only other thing I have, keeping the main thing with respect to the decision that the Board of Education has to make tonight, we have, as I am told, how many drivers on staff as of today? I'm told we lost one. We have 552 drivers today. How many routes do we have in the system today? And And what is the total number of instructional minutes that we have lost this year due to late routes, call out? Say that again? 8 million minutes of instruction have been lost to the students of Jefferson County because we just cannot get them to school on time. And remind me, is that at one school or is that across the district? It's 160 schools that are being affected by this crisis, not just one. We have to work to address this crisis for every school. So that's what we have to say tonight. And we're going to share people back to you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you again, Dr. Prieto, for being here in such short notice and for your very in-depth work, helping us to be the best district that we can possibly be. Appreciate you. Ms. Porter, thank you. You overseen this, and you know this has been intense. Remind us how long you've been employed with JCPS?
August 14th, a few days after the start of school, so that would make it a little over 8 months.
Okay, you said August 14th?
Is when I started.
And I think the first day of school was August 9th. And we had the bus debacle on August 9th, and you were brave enough to accept this position on August 14th. And so we salute you and we thank you for overseeing this, and we recognize your work, and that all of this was already underway when you took the helm. So thank you. Dr. Prieto, was anything in this audit report requested to be changed?
Essentially, no. When we submitted the draft report to May, Ms. Porter, together we did find a few typos. She asked for a few things to be expanded upon. None of the recommendations were altered. None of the general thrust of the report was changed.
Very good. You mentioned on page 6-1 and 6-2 that the transportation director had regular meetings with his supervisor, but was not invited to the larger meetings concerning the development of this transportation plan. Do you have a reason for that?
No, sir.
So he was just...
We were able to document that's what happened.
So was it an oversight or?
No, sir.
It was not an oversight?
We were able to document that.
So am I hearing you correctly to say that the director of transportation was intentionally excluded from meetings with the superiors and the larger team developing the transportation plan for the 2023-2024 school year?
Yes.
Am I hearing you correctly? Am I reading the report correctly? With the understanding that we do not need to do less as it relates to transportation?
Yes. And if I could expand a little bit, if I understood the numbers correctly, we're currently short 17 drivers. 552 to 569, was that? Because of the 50 that typically call out, yes. So the 10% call out is typical for a school district, yes. And something that should be accounted for. We're then talking about, let's say call out is higher than usual, 60 drivers calling out and we're short 17 drivers. That makes a total of 77 drivers we're short. I think that based on what we saw, both in terms of routes that we firmly believe are regularly transporting less than 20 students. We had, let me say this carefully, an individual within the district propose a couple of changes to routes where they knew for a fact, based on their own observations, that the buses were not, both buses were not needed, and made a recommendation to adjust it so that a bus could be freed elsewhere, and that request was denied. I do think that if we dug
Denied by who? Or by what?
that I don't know, I'm sorry. I think that one of the things that we have not sufficiently looked at are in terms of where can we make incremental improvements in what you have, and see where that gets us before we take a drastic step. I think that, to a large extent, if you make the change that you are considering making, there, as some of the speakers said, there really won't be any going back. People will make a decision about where they're going to go to high school, and that'll be decided for 4 years. You will fundamentally alter the fabric of where the district is. So it is our assertion, and understand that we're making that assertion because we have faith in what we saw among the people within the transportation department. We're not saying that it requires, Deus Ex Machina or an additional routing software package or another consulting company. They have the expertise within them to be able to chip away at the problem. Now, can they fix it overnight? No, sir. But they can certainly work towards improvements.
Thank you. Dr. Polio, as it relates to the implementation of option 1, so what I just want to be certain that I'm hearing Dr. Priel correctly. Reading your report, it is my understanding that JCPS does not just need an internal audit director, but we also need a project manager or project management team for proposals of this size.
That's a way to approach it, yes, sir.
Do we have a project manager on the team? For the, if the board moves to adopt option 1 tonight, do we have a project manager on the team ready to go?
We do not have a full project manager, no, that would be the chief operations officer.
Okay. Dr. Prater, thank you for your time. Ms. May, thank you for your time. And Armac, thank you for your time this evening. Floor is open for a motion.
Chair Schul, I'm going to move that the Board of Education accept the report we heard about tonight with the direction that RMEC continue its inquiry on underlying root cause, as well as receiving management's response to phase 1, considering the adequacy of management's response to phase 1, and to report back to the Board of Education on its inquiries within 90 days.
Is there a second? Dr. Cole, all in favor? Ayes have it. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the recommendation for the approval of the transportation plan. I'd like to make a motion that we table the discussions of the transportation plan until the board can adequately digest the findings and recommendations of the audit report, and until we can process the survey that was sent to families on Thursday. I think we need more time for feedback from families and to fully understand how this will impact the children of this district and the family of this district. So I'm making a motion that we table this discussion of retransportation until at least the April 16th meeting. It is seconded by Ms. Strange. There's a question on the motion. Ms. McIntosh? Turn your microphone.
Oh, sorry. May I suggest a week sooner? Families need as much time as they can get to plan.
Be during spring break,
That falls during spring break.
which is fine with me. I'm here, but I don't know if we'll have everybody here.
I think that'll work for families.
The April 16th date will be on schedule with our next board meeting, and it will also give families time for feedback. It will also give our team the adequate time that they need to really take into account everything that we have read in this report and everything that we've heard by constituents, and I think it would be the most fair approach to everyone involved.
Question to the motion. I would like to tonight
hear some response from our administrative team into some of the things that have been said. I have some questions. I'm sure other board members might have questions as well. And then also, depending upon which direction we go, I want to ensure that doesn't change the audit's recommendation that was just given, that we do have enough time. But if we delay, would that couple of weeks between now and then ruin that timeline in case we were to take up another option for change?
Answering your first question, I think we all need to hear the responses of the management team to the findings of the audit report, but the board, as of now, has only received a partial response. As we just heard from Dr. Pareda, we are waiting on the additional responses that will be given by the management team. So I don't know that tonight would be fair to do that to the management team, to give a response. I don't know that we're prepared for that.
Well, we've prepared for the presentation. I mean, we'll always answer questions. We would prefer, obviously, to have those questions and be prepared for them, but I don't want to say we won't answer any questions on it, but, you know, a lot of this was new to us tonight, too. We had the materials, but some of the stuff was new from the Dr. Prio's perspective.
Yes, I think it probably would be in the best interest of everyone if we table this entire discussion at the April 16th meeting. We can include district responses, and that way the board will have 3 weeks to have one-on-one meeting with Dr. Polio and his team, to submit questions via Google Doc, and come back prepared to make a decision that is going to be impactful in one way or the other for the thousands of students that we serve.
Go ahead and speak, please. I would agree after we heard tonight. I know we are really pressed for time. I want to be clear on this, that in following the input of the transportation team, which, you know, I clearly acknowledge mistakes, significant mistakes were made in preparation for the start of this school year. So, you know, once again, we'll take responsibility for that. And so I know that they really need, you know, we have a new routing team now, so we are internally routing. They are in the process of doing that right now based upon the possible recommendations that we have probably. And I have to say to this team, this transportation team, I have brought, I think, 7 different plans to them over the course of the past 4 months, trying to figure out a way to make this work. I really have, and they have done it. But you know, the transportation team is the one also that is providing me the recommendation. But I have to say, I think hearing tonight's conversation, I would prefer as well to get you more information. I think they can still work on some of the routing things, and we get some more potential to look at that, but I would agree with that.
I want to just make sure that I clarify as board chair. Of course, I had to make a decision as to when the transportation audit report would be released, and it was incumbent upon me to ensure, and it was best practices and protocols to release it at the next scheduled board meeting. So this was not to put anybody on the spot, but it was in keeping with best practices and protocols. So now that we've read the audit report, let's give the management team time to adequately respond, and then we can move forward post April 16th. Mr. Craig?
I don't necessarily support moving the vote. I think because we have had discussions about the transportation crisis at nearly every meeting of the Board of Education since August. We have had exhaustive discussions about the 3 options that were put forth in some form or another over the course of the last 7 to 8 months. And we're putting the transportation department, I don't know that we're setting the transportation department up for success by making them wait longer on the recommendation, which I suspect is not going to change unless you're able to find 50 drivers in the next 2 weeks. So we're seeking a vote on the motion to continue the vote. I would oppose the motion to continue the vote for that. And in any any event, I think we should at least hear the presentation that our staff already prepared.
There's a motion on the floor, it has been properly seconded. All in favor, please signify by the raising of your hand.
Could you please restate the motion?
Yes, the motion is to table the discussion concerning the transportation, the approval of the transportation plan until the April 16th meeting, which will provide the Board of Education with the time to process the recommendations of the transportation audit report, and it will provide more time to receive feedback from families through the survey that was sent to families on this past Thursday. There's a motion, it has been properly seconded. All in favor? All opposed? There's one. Thank you.
Dr. Shaw, could I make a related motion?
Yes.
And Dr. Prieto, don't leave yet, sorry. Could you make that the weigh in on this? I would like Prismatic to expand the work they're doing with the district immediately with the goal of maintaining current bus service while reducing loss of instructional minutes as significantly as possible, with the goal, as Dr. Prieto said, of getting them under $2 million per year or less in 24-25. I don't know if that's possible under the current arrangement that we have with Prismatic, and I don't know if Prismatic has the capacity to, work with us as intensely as we need them to. In my view, that we need them to. Others might disagree over the next month and going forward. But ideally, I think Dr. Prieto and her team would be working closely with our district every day from tomorrow until we get as ideal a situation as possible. Dr. Prieto, you have one piece of that unknown puzzle. Is that possible for your team?
And really quick, as she's walking up, Dr. Cole, to your point, does that recommendation contradict the audit's report of sole sourcing? And are we just, once again, saying, here's somebody who can do it and not doing due diligence to make sure we take in everyone? See, even I'm learning.
Well, did we do due diligence when we hired her? When we hired her firm?
We would have to put, I believe, and this would be from Eddie and Kevin, we'd have to put out a new RFP, but I will.
Was that, did we sole source Prismatic for this audit?
No, that's my question.
We put out an RFP. They were a finalist in the RFP and got the.
Well, this is expanding the scope of work rather than looking for a new company.
I think we can, I'll defer to the experts, but it seems.
I tell you what, that's a great recommendation, and I totally would support it, but let's find the requisite information concerning it, and let's also put that on the agenda for April 16th. And we'll know by that time whether Dr. Prieto can accommodate us, and also what the rules are concerning the way we should proceed.
I think that's a great idea. My only concern is that that's 23 days from now, an average, something like that. And I'd rather us use those 23 days as effectively as possible, but if that may indeed be the best way to do it.
We can explore that and have an answer to you legally by the next few days. And then we can talk with Dr. Prieto and see if they have the capacity.
That's correct.
To the COO and the superintendent, if we delay this decision until April the 16th, will you have enough time to route at the beginning of the 2024 school year? And make sure that
I'll defer that to our director of transportation. We're already behind 3 weeks, so the more you.
we're setting up the district for a repeat at the beginning of the 24 school year by not making this decision. I understand the concerns there, absolutely valid. It's damning evidence, but by continuing to delay the vote at all, we're setting us up for failure.
I completely agree with you, Board Member Craig. I would just say, though, that we heard something conflicting from Dr. Prieto, who said we have time.
Right. Ms. Strange.
And I feel we're being very reactionary to the debacle that happened in August.
and not taking the due diligence to listen to recommendations from Dr. Brito to do what we need to do right. I'd rather us take the due diligence rather than another knee-jerk reaction and decimate some schools.
All right, thank you. Board has spoken, board has been taken, let's move forward. We have an update on our multi-lingual funding. That's all we know.
Sounds good.
I'll be in a second.
The lights of Kentucky Performing Arts shine on more than our shows. They illuminate a pathway of discovery for all throughout our Commonwealth. A pathway of creativity, confidence, possibility, of brilliance, inspiration, curiosity, and wonder. For 40 years, Kentucky Performing Arts has led a pathway to unite the Commonwealth around the joy of discovering the arts, and will continue to shine this light far into the future.
Si no haces nada más,
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 si no haces nada más, mantente vivo.